What's up, gamers and geeks? Matt here with That's Fair Podcasting and Gaming Geeks Live. And in this video, I'm going to talk about my top 5 favorite BioWare RPG video games of all time. Now, let's be realistic. Their last 3 were dog shit, in my opinion. That's just the way it goes. You can't stay on top forever. But in this one, I will discuss my all-time top 5 favorite BioWare RPG video games with 2 honorable mentions. So stay tuned. You know, when I earlier said that their last 3 video games were dog shit, especially Dragon Age the Veilguard, it is just absolute piss. Garbage in every sense of the word, but it's not like Anthem really blew up and really became what we were hoping. And then, of course, 2017 was Mass Effect Andromeda. And they have not found a glory day in quite a while. So here's to hoping that the new Mass Effect 4, is it? I don't count Andromeda is a Mass Effect, so I'll call this one Mass Effect 4, but here's hoping that that breaks new ground and actually brings it back. But anyway, again, I am Matt, and if you're new here, please feel free to subscribe to That's Fair Podcasting or Gaming Geeks Live, whichever you're watching the video on, whichever YouTube channel. Don't forget to click like, maybe help us in that algorithm, but if you don't do that and you just watch the video, that's what means the most to me. I appreciate it, so thank you. But what can you say about BioWare? For the longest time, to me, the kings of RPGs. I mean, yes, you had Bethesda come on the scene pretty strong, and you had Obsidian kind of throw their hat in there and actually do a phenomenal job as well. But BioWare at that time, from about 2003 to about 2010, probably the kings, even though Fallout 3 came out from there. You even had Ubisoft try to throw their hat in the RPG ring with Odyssey, Valhalla, and I guess Shadows. But I didn't mind Odyssey, but really wasn't the best. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is I'm going to talk about my all-time top 5 favorite BioWare RPG games. But the 2 honorable mentions before I get them underway, I'm going to go with Mass Effect 3 as an honorable mention. It bookended a badass trilogy, I guess, but it left us with some questions, maybe more questions than answers. Or maybe just a little more unsatisfactory than satisfactory. I don't know. I just know that it didn't end in the way I wanted. And I know that you had the multiple endings with Shepard. I get it. But, it left you with something just not there. There felt like something was missing. I typically went more of the synthetic route, but it didn't really matter. You had the Legendary Edition come out, which fixed a lot of it and made sure that Shepard was breathing at the end, but I don't know. I loved Mass Effect 3. It was just in 3rd place in the Mass Effects. That's basically the way I see it. My other honorable mention will be Dragon Age 2. I liked more of the NPCs in that game. It was more linear, obviously. It felt, it felt you were more in one area. You could almost tell. It felt rushed. BioWare did rush it. And you could feel the rushed vibe from that game. But I felt that out of the Dragon Ages, I liked how they represented the Qunari the best, in my opinion. So I'm going to go from a Qunari standpoint, Dragon Age 2 was badass. Because I really did like that, the race of Qunari. So anyway, those are my honorable mentions. But starting at number 5, I'm going to go with the first Mass Effect. Look, I mean, let's be honest. It broke new ground. It created a new IP, and it created it with a fucking vengeance. I mean, it introduced us to Commander Shepard, to Liara, to my favorite NPC in any video game ever, Garrus Vakarian. You had Tali, you had Rex, Cade Nalenko, I guess Ashley, however you chose to pick. I typically leave Ashley on Vermeer. But, it was literally a beginning of something that I think that we needed in an RPG, a new space sci-fi that we got. And I haven't seen a sci-fi video game reach the epic level that Mass Effect has as far as RPG elements. Now, stay tuned because there is Exodus coming out by Archetype Entertainment, former devs from BioWare. So that we might have a competitor with Mass Effect, because some of these people jumped the ship of BioWare when they saw the direction it was going. You can't blame them. But anyway, Mass Effect is my number 5 because, you know, it gave us exploration, a whole new, like I said, the new IP gave us all these different worlds to explore. And yeah, each world's linear, but you know, this is in what, 2007, I think. I mean, it was going to be limited regardless, but it didn't feel limited. And you really felt like you were in charge of your crew on the Normandy. And I got to tell you, from Dr. Shakwas all the way to my boy Garrus Vakarian, you had the Normandy, you had a crew, and you had a beginning of something beautifully crafted. It was a great game fest when it started. So number 5 to me is the first Mass Effect by BioWare. Number 4, Jade Empire. By the way, my number 1 is no big surprise. If anybody's watched these videos, which, you know, if you haven't, I understand. But I will say this, everyone knows my number 1. It's my number 1 favorite video game of all time. So it's easily my favorite BioWare game. Kind of a dead giveaway if you've watched previous videos. But my number 4 is going to be Jade Empire, which was another IP that I wish they would have continued on. It introduced us into a fantastical martial art world. Kind of a mythical, almost like a China, you know, like in a fantasy realm there. You had Dawnstar, and I don't remember the other chick's name. Drawing a blank, Silk Fox, I think. But anyway, and then you had other characters, but you know, I just remember the master in there, even though that's who you ultimately end up facing. It was like a kung fu movie, but ultimately, you know, your master's like, just stick with the basics and keep them close to your heart. And you know, you did, and you got to choose. I even got the expanded DLC where you got that bald-headed monk dude. He was a badass. But yeah, you know, Jade Empire was the beginning of something that I wish they would have explored more into, would have added on more into. It came out the same year as Knights of the Old Republic 2, The Sith Lords did, which was an Obsidian title. I was excited for it. I absolutely, the replay value for Jade Empire is high. Would love to see a remake with that one. I think that could do some serious damage as far as on the plus side. So Jade Empire is my number 4 overall, because even to this day, I think it aged fairly well for regular Xbox. I think the OG Xbox, like I said, in 05. But anyway, that is number 4 for Jade Empire. Hopefully you guys can see why it's badass. Number 3 is going to be the first Dragon Age Origins, and it even had a hell of an expansion called Dragon Age The Awakening. We were introduced to Duncan, who gave us the Grey Wardens, and I mean, that, let's be realistic, I mean, that was awesome. You know, I remember how it felt like a BioWare game. It felt like you were going so far, let's just say it was a lot less linear than the second one. And, you know, you had game mechanics. You had awesome NPCs with Liliana and Morrigan. And, you know, I'm drawing blanks on the other ones. I know their names, the dwarf, and, like, I get it. But it was awesome. You had to solve different puzzles, like when you were, I forgot what it's called, but it's almost like you're in the dreamland or whatever, and you're a mouse, you remember that? And you had to like go into the right holes, and that sounds bad, but you know what I mean. But anyway, you know, Dragon Age was just something that just kind of blew us away. It took us away from, you know, the likes of, you know, what they were originally working on in their early RPs like Star Wars. And I want to say Mass Effect. I think Mass Effect came out before Dragon Age. If I'm not mistaken, Dragon Age I think was 08 or 09, because I think Mass Effect was 2007. Don't quote me on it. Maybe my dates are off, but that's what I think. But anyway, Dragon Age at number 3, because, you know, you got to customize your Grey Warden. You know, you didn't have all the options in the world that you may have in a game on today's consoles, but you know, I had the rogue guy, you know, the thief or whatever. You know, thief is a rogue in D&D, but you know, I had the little daggers, the dual weapons, and that's kind of what I ultimately played in Dragon Age 2 again as well. But anyway, at number 3, Dragon Age Origins, it was the start of something that could have been epic, but when Velgard came out, it literally completely shit on everything that BioWare, the original devs, had crafted. But yep, number 3, Dragon Age Origins, and at number 2, Mass Effect 2, the OG Suicide Squad, man. If I leave people out, I'm sorry, but let's start with Miranda and Jack and Jacob. You had Mordin Solus, you had Samara, Tali came back, my boy Garrus, you know, you had the that expanded people like Kasumi and Zaid, Thane, the assassin. And again, I feel like I'm leaving someone out. And if I am, I'm so sorry. Probably someone important. But anyway, Mass Effect 2 is my number 2 pick. And when you had to go through the Omega 4 relay and you were going through, it was so, it was huge. I mean, you had all these loyalty missions, you know. Even Liara, you had a Shadow Broker DLC. So she got to team with you. You got to meet up with some of the old people from the past, like Rex. I loved Mass Effect 2. To me, the greatest sequel in a video game of all time. It was huge. You had an upgraded Normandy. You had Kelly, who was your yeoman. I mean, you know, and then Edie was ultimately slowly introduced, albeit more in AI form, or VI, however, an AI. Yeah, anyway. Joker we'll bang. Don't worry, we'll bang later. But anyway, yeah, Joker, that's Joker's woman. I can't diss her. But you know, Mass Effect 2, when you did the Suicide Squad, I had to play it over and over just to make sure I did the crew right, because I didn't want anyone to die. And you know, at this point, you knew BioWare well enough that there was a way to save everybody. You know, ultimately, you had to figure out, well, you've got to do the loyalty missions first and foremost, or whoever you don't do their loyalty mission, they die. And you know, I always went through and romanced different people. You know, I romanced Miranda, then Jack, then Tali. I mean, the replay value in the Mass Effect trilogy is so sky high, even with Legendary Edition, that it kind of stands on its own and speaks for itself. So Mass Effect 2 is my number 2. Number 2. Anyway, sorry. My number 1, no need for a drum roll. Everyone knows. We know, Matt. Fucking Knights of the Old Republic. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic was the first game that I ever played so in depth with that I didn't realize the sun was coming up. I'm sitting on my bedroom floor, fired it up, and next thing I know, I hear birds chirping. I'm like, it's a little late for birds to be chirping. I look out my blinds because we had heavy blinds. I look out and I'm like, oh shit, the sun was coming up. And it only felt like 2 hours. That's how good the story was as you play as the protagonist, or Revan. There's no spoiler alert. If you don't know it now, I'm sorry, you're just way behind. But you're Darth Revan, you know, and you meet up with Bastila, Cartho Nassi, Mission Veo, Zalbar, T3, the HK, Jolie Bender, although he's kind of a pansy. But I loved Juhani, that Jedi. You meet her on Dantooine in like that shrine, I believe. But Knights of the Old Republic was the first one that allowed you to be a Jedi in a role-playing game, like a real role-playing game. Got to jump on the Ebonhawk, go to planet to planet. Man, there'd be times when I was first playing, I would just jump on the Ebonhawk for the cutscene. I'd go from Manon back to Korab and, you know, whatever. I would do what I could to just keep jumping from planet to planet so I could get more Ebonhawk time. And, you know, Manon, probably my favorite planet, with Harakert Rift down below. And you gotta, you know, there's one of two ways. You can get kicked out of Otto City by the Selkath if you kill the Varaxan shark, I believe. Or there are other ways to do it. But, you know, it was awesome. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2. I cannot wait for that remake. It's still very much alive. It is very much coming out, and there's been a hint we could finally get a release trailer for the Knights of the Old Republic release by the holidays. So let's hope that we get that. But anyway, those are my top 5. You know, I start with Mass Effect, Jade Empire, Dragon Age Origins, Mass Effect 2, and my all-time favorite video game ever, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. A useless video, a useless rant, but some of you get it and you dig it and you stuck with me, and I thank you. And by the way, I want to thank the subscribers that have jumped onto That's Fair Podcasting. It really means the world that is slowly growing, but it's growing, and you guys are making that happen. And I cannot thank you enough. Sincerely, thank you so much. Thank you for watching this video. Again, if you don't mind subscribing to That's Fair Podcasting or Gaming Geeks Live, whatever you watch this on. Again, like us, help us in that algorithm. Every like gets us more views, so thank you. And if you don't do those and you just watch the video, thank you so much. That's what means the most. I sincerely appreciate it. And to all you gamers out there, all love to you, and I'm outro.